The emergency beacon pierced through the silence of deep space like a desperate cry. Captain Sarah of the human exploration vessel Prometheus studied the distress signal on her console, her brow furrowed with concern. The transmission came from the restricted system, a place where humans were explicitly forbidden to enter by the Galactic Council. "Captain, we're receiving the signal on multiple emergency frequencies," reported Lieutenant Martinez from the communications station. "It's not using any standard protocols we recognize, but the universal distress markers are clear." Sarah stared at the navigation display showing their current position just outside space. The Galactic Council had been clear about the consequences of violating territorial boundaries. Humans were still the species in the galactic community, barely 50 years since first contact. They walked on eggshells around the older, more established civilizations who viewed them with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. "Captain, I'm detecting life signs in distress," called out Dr. Williams from the science station. "Multiple entities, but the readings are strange. Some of them are fatting fast." Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, weighing her options. The smart choice would be to report the distress signal to the nearest Galactic Council outpost and let them handle it. That would keep humanity's record clean and avoid any diplomatic incidents that could set back their species standing in the galaxy by decades. But the beacon kept pulsing, each signal like a heartbeat growing weaker. "How long until the nearest council patrol could respond?" she asked. "Approximately 18 hours, Captain," Martinez replied after checking the deployment schedules. 18 hours. Sarah had been in enough emergency situations to know that 18 hours might as well be 18 years when lives were on the line. She thought of her own daughter back on Earth and what she would want someone to do if the roles were reversed. "Set course for the signal's origin. Maximum safe speed," she ordered. "Captain, the territorial restrictions," began Commander Blake, her first officer. "Are noted and logged," Sarah cut him off. "But we took an oath to render aid to any vessel in distress, regardless of species or politics. That oath doesn't have exceptions for paperwork." The Prometheus changed course, its engines humming with increased power as they crossed into space. The crew worked in tense silence, each knowing they were potentially sacrificing their careers for unknown aliens who might not even survive long enough to be rescued. As they approached the signal's source, the main resolved the image of a damaged vessel unlike anything in their databases. The ship appeared to be constructed from a crystalline material that caught and reflected the distant star's light in mesmerizing patterns. But those patterns were broken by massive hull breaches and scorched sections where whatever propulsion system it used had failed catastrophically. "Scanning the vessel now," Dr. Williams reported. "I'm reading 7 life signs aboard. 3 are critical, 2 are stable but weakening, and 2 appear to be in some kind of stasis or protective state." "Any signs of what attacked them?" Sarah asked. "Weapon signatures suggest energy-based projectiles, but nothing in our databases. The attack patterns are methodical. This wasn't a battle, Captain. This was an execution that got interrupted." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. She'd heard whispers in the shadier parts of galactic society about vessels that simply disappeared in deep space, their crews never found. Most dismissed them as tall tailies, but looking at the precise nature of the damage to this alien ship, she began to wonder if those stories might be true. "Hail them," she ordered. Static filled the communication channel for several moments before a voice broke through. The universal translator struggled with the alien language, producing a mechanical but understandable approximation. "Unknown vessel, you must leave immediately. They will return. My children, please, someone must." The transmission cut to static again. "Clean that up," Sarah ordered Martinez. After several minutes of filtering and enhancement, the voice came through more clearly. It was definitely female, though not human. There was something in the tone that transcended species barriers, the unmistakable desperation of a mother in fear for her children. "Unknown vessel, I am Ra of the mining collective Bright Stone. Our ship was attacked by the purifiers. They think we are dead, but they will return to verify. You must take my children and go. I am dying, but they are young. They have committed no crimes against the purification protocol." Sarah exchanged glances with her senior staff. None of them had ever heard of the purifiers or any purification protocol, but the implications were chilling. "This is Captain Sarah of the human vessel Prometheus," she broadcast back. We're here to help. Prepare for emergency docking procedures. The alien's voice crackled back with what sounded like surprise. Human, but your species is forbidden in this system. You will face severe punishment from the Council. Let us worry about that, Sarah replied. Focus on staying alive until we can get you medical attention. 20 minutes later, Sarah stood in the makeshift medical bay they'd set up in Cargo Bay 2. Doctor, their chief medical officer, worked frantically over the alien they'd managed to extract from the dying ship. Ra was humanoid in basic shape, but clearly evolved from a different evolutionary path. Her skin had a subtle crystalline quality that reminded Sarah of the ship's hull, and her hair seemed to shift colors based on her emotional state. Currently, a deep blue that Doctor had determined indicated severe pain. Captain, Ra whispered, her voice weak but urgent. My children, are they safe? Sarah looked toward the corner of the cargo bay where two smaller aliens sat huddled together. They appeared to be adolescents, their crystalline features still developing. Unlike their mother's blue-tinged hair, theirs shifted between pale green and silver, colors that seemed to indicate fear and confusion. They're safe, Sarah assured her. My crew is taking good care of them. Ra's large, multifaceted eyes focused on Sarah with obvious effort. You do not understand what you have done, human. The Purifiers have a contract from the Galactic Council. My family has been marked for elimination. Why? Sarah asked. What could children possibly have done to warrant execution? We exist, Ra said simply. They are an old race, Captain. We were spacefaring when most current Council species were still discovering fire. But we are few now, scattered across the galaxy in small family units. Some in the Council believe we possess knowledge too dangerous to remain loose in the galaxy. What kind of knowledge? Ra's breathing became more labored. Doctor caught Sarah's eye and shook his head slightly. Their patient was failing despite his best efforts. The location of the first archive, Ra whispered. The repository of technologies from before the last Great War. The Council fears that if this knowledge falls into the wrong hands, it could destabilize their carefully maintained balance of power. Sarah felt pieces of a larger puzzle clicking into place in her mind. So they hired assassins to eliminate every who might know the location. Not hired. The Purifiers are a Council-sanctioned organization. They operate under something called the Stability Preservation Protocol. Officially, they do not exist. The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. The Galactic Council, the organization that humanity looked up to as the pinnacle of civilized cooperation, was systematically committing genocide to protect their political interests. Ra's hand reached out and gripped Sarah's wrist with surprising strength. Promise me, Captain, promise me you will protect my children. They know nothing of the archive's location, I made sure of that. But the Purifiers will not care. They kill entire bloodlines to be certain. Sarah looked into the alien mother's eyes and saw something that transcended species barriers, the desperate love of a parent willing to trust strangers with their children's lives. I promise, she said simply. Ra's grip relaxed and something like relief crossed her features. Thank you. Tell them that their mother loved them enough to trust them to the humans. Tell them that love is stronger than fear. She died 3 minutes later. Sarah stood vigil over the body for several minutes, processing what she had just committed herself and her crew to. They had just accepted responsibility for 2 alien children while simultaneously learning that the Galactic Council was not the benevolent organization they pretended to be. Captain, Commander Blake called from the doorway. Long-range sensors are detecting 3 vessels approaching our position. Fast attack craft, unknown configuration. Sarah looked one more time at Ra's peaceful face, then at her children who were now orphans depending on the protection of strangers. The Purifiers. Most likely, ETA 23 minutes at their current speed. Sarah made her decision. Destroy the ship completely, no trace evidence, then plot a course for the outer rim. We're going off the grid. Captain, that means we can't return to Earth or any Council-affiliated station. We'll be fugitives. Sarah walked over to where the 2 children sat. The girl looked up at her with eyes that held too much understanding for someone so young. The boy clutched what appeared to be a small crystalline toy, his hair cycling through colors that spoke of grief and terror. What are your names? Sarah asked gently. The girl answered for both of them. I am Ra, and this is my brother Al. Are you going to protect us like you promised our mother? The simple faith in the child's voice made Sarah's decision feel both easier and more terrifying. "Yes," she said, "we're going to protect you." She turned back to Blake. "Send a message to all department heads. Emergency meeting in the conference room in 10 minutes. And Blake, make sure everyone understands that from this moment forward, we're no longer just explorers, we're guardians." As the Prometheus began its desperate flight from the approaching purifier vessels, Sarah realized that her simple human compassion had just set in motion events that would challenge everything humanity thought they knew about their place in the galaxy. But looking at the two children who now depended on her protection, she knew she would make the same choice again. The purifiers had made a critical error in their calculations. They had encountered humans before, cataloged their technological capabilities, and assessed their military potential. But they had failed to account for one crucial factor. When humans made a promise to protect someone, they kept that promise no matter the cost. The chase was about to begin, and the purifiers were about to learn why humanity had survived every challenge their harsh had thrown at them. They were about to discover that humans didn't just stand with those they protected. They stood between them and anyone who would do them harm, no matter how powerful or supposedly righteous those enemies claimed to be. As the Prometheus entered hyperspace with the purifier ships closing fast behind them, Sarah had no way of knowing that her decision to answer an alien mother's plea would ultimately reshape the balance of power across the galaxy. All she knew was that two children needed protection, and she had given her word. In the cold equations of galactic politics, that might not seem like much. But the purifiers were about to learn that human promises carried a weight that could tip the scales of even the mightiest civilizations. 3 weeks had passed since the Prometheus had rescued Ra and Al from their dying ship. 3 weeks of running, hiding in nebulae, and making quick stops at the most remote outposts in the galaxy. 3 weeks of watching the two children slowly begin to trust their human protectors while learning to grieve for their murdered mother. Captain Sarah stood on the observation deck, watching the swirling colors of the Magellan Nebula outside. The dense gas clouds provided excellent cover from sensors, but they also meant the ship was running on minimal power to avoid detection. The crew had adapted remarkably well to their new circumstances, though she could see the strain beginning to show. "Captain," came a voice behind her. She turned to see Chief Engineer approaching with a data pad in his hands and a worried expression on his face. "What's the situation, Carlos?" "We've got problems, ma'am, multiple problems." He handed her the data pad. "Our food synthesizers are starting to show wear from the constant overuse. We're feeding 2 extra mouths with metabolisms we don't fully understand. Doctor's done his best to figure out what the kids need, but it's been a lot of trial and error." Sarah scrolled through the technical readouts. The synthesizers were operating at 140% of their recommended capacity, and several key components were showing stress fractures. "How long before we start seeing failures?" "Maybe 2 weeks if we're lucky, a few days if we're not." "And the other problems?" Rubbed his temples. "Fuel cells are at 30%. We've been running dark for so long that we haven't been able to properly recharge. And Captain, the crew is starting to ask questions about our long-term plan. They followed you without question when you made the decision to protect the kids, but people need hope." Sarah nodded, understanding the weight of command in a way she never had before. When she decided to rescue Ra and Al, she'd been thinking about immediate survival. She hadn't fully considered the logistical nightmare of keeping them safe indefinitely while being hunted by a galaxy-spanning organization with unlimited resources. "Any word from our contacts about safe havens?" "That's actually some good news. Lieutenant Martinez has been quietly reaching out through encrypted channels to some of the independent colonies. There's a place called Haven's Rest in the periphery that's willing to take in refugees, no questions asked." "But Captain." "But it's in space, and they have a long-standing treaty with the Galactic Council. If the purifiers track us there, the government would be obligated to turn us over." Sarah sighed and looked back out at the nebula. Every option seemed to lead to more complications. "What about the children? How are they adapting?" His expression softened slightly. "Better than expected, honestly. Al has been spending time in engineering with my team. Kid's got an intuitive understanding of quantum mechanics that's honestly a little scary. And Ra has been helping Dr. Williams with xenobiology research. She's teaching him more about physiology than our entire database contained." That's good, keeping them busy helps with the grief. Captain, there's something else you should know. Ra asked to speak with you privately. She says it's important. Sarah found Ra in what had once been the ship's small library, now converted into a makeshift living space for the two children. The girl was sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by holographic displays showing star charts and mathematical equations that hurt Sarah's head just to look at. You wanted to see me. Ra looked up, her hair shifting from the pale blue of concentration to the silver of serious conversation. Captain, I need to tell you something important about why the purifiers are really hunting us. Sarah sat down across from her. Your mother mentioned something called the First Archive. She told you the truth, but not the whole truth. Ra waved her hand, and the holographic displays shifted to show what looked like a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. The archive isn't just a repository of old technology, it's a weapon, the most powerful weapon ever created. What kind of weapon? The kind that could destroy entire star systems with a thought. The kind that could rewrite the fundamental laws of physics in localized space. The kind that turned our into a dead rock 12,000 years ago. Sarah felt her blood run cold. Your people built this weapon. No, we found it. There were explorers long before we were anything else. We discovered the ruins of a civilization so ancient that their name is lost to time. They called themselves the architects, and they built the archive as their final act before something destroyed them. The star map zoomed in on a small, unremarkable system near the galactic core. The archive is here, hidden inside an artificial construct that looks like a dead planet. My people have been its guardians for 12,000 years, making sure no one ever again gains access to that kind of power. Sarah studied the map, but the Council knows about it. Some members of the Council discovered references to it in ancient ruins scattered across the galaxy. They've been searching for it for the past 1,000 years. When they realized that they might know its location, they created the Purification Protocol. Better to eliminate an entire species than risk someone else finding the archive first. Do you know how to find it? Ra's hair shifted to deep red, a color Sarah had learned indicated shame or regret. I do. Mother tried to keep the knowledge from us, but Al and we were curious children. We found her private records and studied them in secret. We thought it was just history lessons. And now we're the last two people in the galaxy who know how to activate the Guardian systems that keep the archive hidden. If we die, the secret dies with us. But if we live... Sarah began to understand the true magnitude of the situation they had stumbled into. If you live, someone might eventually force that information out of you. The purifiers have memory extraction technology. If they capture us alive, they won't just kill us quickly. They'll tear every secret from our minds before they execute us. Sarah stood up and began packing, her mind racing through the implications. So we can't let you be captured, and we can't let you die naturally either, because eventually someone else might figure out that you know the location. There is another option, Ra said quietly. What? We could go to the archive ourselves, use its power to destroy the purifiers, and force the Council to leave the surviving alone. Sarah stopped packing and stared at the girl. You're talking about using a weapon that destroyed you. I'm talking about using it precisely and carefully. The archive isn't just destructive, it can create as well as destroy. It could force the galaxy to evolve past its current state of barely controlled conflict. Or it could kill billions of innocent people. Ra's hair shifted through multiple colors before settling on a deep purple that Sarah didn't recognize. Captain, the purifiers have killed 17 different species to extinction in the past 500 years. The Council calls it the Stability Preservation Protocol, but it's really about preventing any challenge to their power. How many more species will they eliminate to maintain their control? The question hung in the air between them like a challenge. Sarah realized that what she had thought was a simple rescue mission had become something much more complex. She wasn't just protecting two children, she was potentially holding the key to reshaping galactic civilization. I need to think about this, Sarah said finally. Captain, there's something else. The purifiers aren't just hunting us, they're hunting humans now too. Sarah felt her heart skip. What do you mean? Ra manipulated the holographic display, bringing up intercepted communications that Lieutenant Martinez had been monitoring. 3 days ago, the Purifier leadership issued a secondary protocol. Any species that aids or harbors fugitives is to be classified as a potential threat to galactic stability. The implications hit Sarah like a sledgehammer. They're going to go after Earth. Not immediately. The purifiers move slowly when dealing with established council members. But they've already begun spreading rumors about human unpredictability and aggressive tendencies. They're building a case for preventive action. Sarah sank back down to the floor, overwhelmed by the weight of what she was learning. Her decision to rescue 2 alien children hadn't just put her crew at risk, it had potentially doomed her entire species. How long do we have? Based on the communication patterns, maybe 6 months before they present their case to the council. Maybe less if they can capture us and use our rescue as proof of human interference in council operations. Sarah closed her eyes and tried to center herself. When she opened them again, she saw Al standing in the doorway, his hair cycling through colors that spoke of fear and determination in equal measure. "I heard," he said simply. "What my sister isn't telling you is that the archive has defensive capabilities as well as offensive ones. If we can reach it and activate the Guardian protocols properly, we can create a protective barrier around human space. The purifiers won't be able to touch your people." "And the cost?" Brother and sister exchanged glances that carried the weight of 12,000 years of racial memory. "Someone has to become the new Guardian," Ra said. "Someone has to stay with the archive and make sure it's never misused. It's a lifetime commitment. The previous Guardian died 300 years ago, which is why the hiding systems have been failing." Sarah looked at these 2 alien children who had already lost so much, and were now offering to sacrifice the rest of their lives to protect the species that had shown them kindness. The simple human compassion that had started this journey was being tested in ways she had never imagined. "There has to be another way," she said. "Captain," Al said, his voice carrying a maturity that no child should possess, "my mother asked if you would stand with her children. You said yes. Now her children are asking if you'll stand with your species. We know where the archive is and we know how to use it safely, but we need your help to get there." Sarah realized that the scared children she had rescued were gone, replaced by 2 young beings who understood the weight of history and were prepared to carry it. The question was whether she had the courage to help them. "I need to discuss this with my crew," she said finally. "Of course," Ra replied. "But Captain, decide quickly. The purifiers have found our trail again. We have maybe 48 hours before they catch up to us." As Sarah left the children to their star charts and began walking toward the conference room where she would have to explain the impossible situation to her crew, she realized that every choice from this point forward would reshape not just her life, but the future of human civilization itself. The weight of that responsibility should have crushed her. Instead, she found herself thinking about Ra's final words. "Tell them that love is stronger than fear." Maybe it was time to test that theory on a galactic scale. The conference room aboard the Prometheus had never felt smaller than it did at this moment. Captain Sarah looked around the table at her senior staff, seeing the mix of determination, fear, and disbelief on their faces as she finished explaining the situation they found themselves in. "So let me get this straight," said Commander Blake, his voice carefully controlled. "We're harboring 2 children who know the location of a weapon that could destroy entire star systems. The organization hunting them now considers humanity a threat, and our only options are to either hand the kids over to genocidal maniacs or help them reach this archive thing so they can become its eternal guardians." "That's an accurate summary," Sarah confirmed. Chief Engineer leaned forward. "Captain, with all due respect, this is insane. We're talking about making decisions that could affect billions of lives based on the word of 2 traumatized children. 2 traumatized children who have demonstrated knowledge of quantum mechanics and xenobiology that surpasses our entire database," Dr. Williams interjected. "I've been working with Ra for 3 weeks now. Her understanding of cosmic-scale physics is genuinely extraordinary. If she says this archive exists, I believe her." Lieutenant Martinez spoke up from his position near the communications console. "Captain, I've been monitoring purifier communications since we left space. They're not just hunting random fugitives. This is a coordinated operation involving at least 12 vessels and some kind of specialized tracking technology. Whatever they're after, they consider it worth a significant resource investment." "And the threats against humanity?" asked Doctor. "Real," Martinez confirmed. I've intercepted 3 separate communications referencing the Human Contingency Protocol. They're building a case for preemptive action against Earth and all human colonies. Silence fell over the room as the weight of that statement sank in. Sarah watched her crew process the information, seeing the moment when each of them realized that their personal survival had become secondary to the survival of their entire species. "There's something else we need to consider," said Commander Blake. "Even if we accept that the children are telling the truth about the archive, what makes us think we can actually reach it? We're one ship being hunted by a fleet. Our supplies are running low, and we don't even know if the archive's location is accessible to our technology." "I've been thinking about that," Sarah replied. She activated the room's holographic display, showing a 3-dimensional map of their current sector. "Ra gave me the coordinates yesterday. The archive is hidden in the Architect's crown system, approximately 8 light-years from our current position." Studied the display. "That's deep inside the galactic core region. High radiation, unstable gravimetric conditions, and half a dozen interstellar phenomena that could tear a ship apart. No wonder the Council hasn't found it in 1,000 years of searching." "But it's not impossible to reach," Sarah pressed. "Possible, yes. Suicidal, probably." Manipulated the display to show potential approach routes. "We'd need to thread the needle between 3 different pulsar systems, navigate through what looks like an artificial gravity well, and somehow avoid cooking ourselves in the residual radiation from the galactic core." Dr. Williams leaned forward to study the map more closely. "Wait a minute. This configuration isn't natural. Look at the positioning of these stellar bodies." Sarah squinted at the display. To her, it looked like a random collection of stars and cosmic debris, but Williams had a doctorate in astrophysics and saw patterns where others saw chaos. "What are you seeing, Doctor?" "This is artificial. Someone moved these stars. The pulsars are positioned to create a specific interference pattern, and the gravity wells are aligned to form a navigation corridor. It's a maze designed to keep people out, but there's a path through it." "A path that requires specific knowledge to navigate," Sarah concluded. "Knowledge that only the possess." Commander Blake rubbed his temples. "So we're talking about flying into one of the most dangerous regions in the galaxy, following directions from 2 children, to reach a weapon that could either save humanity or accidentally destroy half the galaxy." "That's correct. Captain, I have to ask, are you certain this is the right choice? Because once we commit to this course of action, there's no going back. We'll be fugitives for the rest of our lives, assuming we survive long enough to have the rest of our lives." Sarah looked around the table at each of her crew members. These people had followed her into the unknown because they trusted her judgment. Now she was asking them to risk everything on what seemed like an impossible gamble. "I want each of you to understand something," she said. "I'm not ordering anyone to come with me. This mission is voluntary. If you want to take a shuttle and try to make it to one of the outer rim colonies, I won't think less of you. But I made a promise to a dying mother, and I intend to keep it." "What about the kids?" asked Doctor. "What do they want?" Before Sarah could answer, the conference room door opened. Ra and Al entered, their hair colors shifting through patterns that suggested they had been listening to the conversation from outside. "We want to go home," Ra said simply. "Not to our birth world that's been dead for centuries, but to the archive. It's where we belong." Al stepped forward. "Captain, your people are afraid because they think we're asking you to help us become weapons. But that's not what Guardians do. Guardians protect. We want to protect everyone, humans, even the Council species, from the archive's power." "And from the purifiers," Ra added. "Once we activate the archive's defensive systems, we can create protected zones throughout the galaxy. Safe spaces where species can develop without fear of preemptive elimination." Commander Blake studied the children carefully. "You're talking about reshaping galactic civilization." "The galaxy is already being reshaped," Al replied. "The purifiers remake it through fear and elimination. We want to remake it through protection and growth." Sarah felt something shift in the room's atmosphere. Her crew was beginning to see what she had seen when she first looked into Ra's dying eyes. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about choosing what kind of galaxy they wanted to live in. "I have a question," said Lieutenant Martinez. "If we help you reach the archive, what happens to us? Do we become Guardians too? Do we spend the rest of our lives hiding in the galactic core?" Ra and Al exchanged one of their meaningful glances before Ra answered. The archive has transportation capabilities that transcend normal spacetime. Once it's properly activated, we can send you anywhere in the galaxy instantly. You could return to Earth, establish contact with your government, and warn them about the Purifier threat. Or, Al added, you could stay and help us establish the first Guardian station. Humans have qualities that would make excellent guardians: curiosity, adaptability, and the ability to form alliances across species barriers. Looked up from the technical specifications he had been studying. Captain, I've been running calculations based on what the kids have told us about archive technology. If even half of what they're describing is accurate, we're looking at capabilities that could advance human technology by thousands of years overnight. That's not the point, Sarah said firmly. We're not doing this for technological advancement. We're doing this because it's the right thing to do. But it doesn't hurt that the right thing to do might also give humanity the tools to defend itself against future threats, Blake added pragmatically. Dr. Williams cleared his throat. I've been thinking about the scientific implications. The archive represents a unique opportunity to study technologies and physics from a civilization that was building megastructures when our solar system was still a nebula. The knowledge we could gain might revolutionize our understanding of the universe. And the risks, Sarah asked. Significant. But Captain, the risks of doing nothing are also significant. If the purifiers succeed in eliminating thee and then turn their attention to humanity, we'll face that threat without any allies and without advanced warning. Sarah looked around the table one more time. I need a decision from each of you. Are you with me? One by one, her senior staff voiced their agreement. Some with enthusiasm, others with resignation, but all with determination. Even Commander Blake, who had expressed the most doubts, nodded his consent. Then we plot a course for the Architect's crown, Sarah decided. How long will it take us to reach the system? Consulted his calculations. Approximately 4 days, assuming we can navigate the approach corridor without running into any of the hazards Dr. Williams mentioned. And our pursuit. Martinez checked his latest sensor readings. The Purifier fleet is approximately 18 hours behind us and closing slowly. If we maintain our current course, they'll catch us before we reach the archive system. Sarah felt her stomach tighten. Options. We could try to lose them in the Maelstrom Nebula, suggested. It's about 6 hours off our direct route, but the electromagnetic interference might mask our trail. At the cost of additional time we don't have, Blake pointed out. Ross spoke up. There is another option. The archives have automated defense systems that extend approximately 1 light-year from the hidden planet. If we can reach that boundary before the purifiers catch us, we'll have protection. And if we don't, then we fight, Al said simply. The Prometheus is a good ship with a good crew, and the purifiers have never fought humans before. Sarah smiled grimly at the boy's confidence. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. But as she gave the orders to change course for the Architect's crown system, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that hope might not be enough. They were about to embark on a journey that would either save humanity from a terrible fate or lead them all to destruction in the depths of space. Either way, there was no turning back now. The Prometheus shuddered as it passed through another gravity well distortion, the ship's structural integrity field working overtime to keep them from being torn apart by the twisted spacetime around the galactic core. Captain Sarah gripped her command chair as the vessel bucked like a wild animal, while around her the bridge crew fought to maintain control of their systems. Hull stress is approaching critical levels, Chief Engineer reported over the comm system, his voice tight with concentration. We're going to start seeing microfractures in the outer plating if we don't find calmer space soon. How much further to the navigation corridor? Sarah called out to Ra, who was working at the science station alongside Dr. Williams. The girl studied the readings, her hair shifting from deep blue concentration to pale silver worry. We're almost through the outer defensive ring. The pulsar interference should decrease significantly once we pass the next gravity marker. Define significantly, Commander Blake requested from his position at the tactical station. The gravitational shearing will drop from catastrophically dangerous to merely extremely hazardous, Al answered from where he was monitoring the engine systems. Despite being just a child, he had proven remarkably adept at understanding human technology and had become unofficial assistant. That's reassuring, Blake muttered. Sarah checked the chronometer. They had been navigating the Architect's Crown approach for 36 hours, following navigation instructions that seemed to change every few minutes as they encountered new stellar phenomena. Behind them, long-range sensors showed the Purifier fleet had given up their pursuit 12 hours ago, apparently deciding that following their quarry into this cosmic death trap wasn't worth the risk. "Captain," Lieutenant Martinez called from communications, "I'm reading some kind of signal ahead. It's not natural, but it doesn't match any technology in our databases." "Let me hear it," Sarah ordered. The bridge speakers crackled to life with a sound unlike anything they had ever heard. It wasn't quite music and wasn't quite language, but somehow conveyed meaning directly to the listener's mind. Sarah felt a strange sense of recognition, as if she was remembering something she had never actually learned. "It's a greeting protocol," Ra explained, her hair now shimmering with colors that indicated excitement mixed with reverence. "The archive is acknowledging our approach and requesting identification." "How do we respond?" Dr. Williams asked. "Like this," Al said, and began humming in harmony with the signal. His sister joined in, and together they created a complex melody that seemed to resonate through the ship's hull itself. The signal from ahead changed, becoming warmer and more welcoming. On the main, space itself began to shimmer, revealing what had been hidden behind sophisticated camouflage fields. Sarah felt her breath catch in her throat. Where moments before there had been empty space, a massive structure now dominated their view. It looked like someone had taken a small planet and covered it in crystalline growths that reached out into space like the branches of an enormous tree. The entire structure pulsed with gentle light that seemed to flow through the crystalline branches like luminous blood through veins. "My God," Dr. Williams whispered, "how large is that thing?" Ra consulted her readings. Approximately 12,000 kilometers in diameter, with the crystalline extensions reaching out another 8,000 kilometers in all directions. "But Captain, most of what you're seeing isn't actually solid matter. The archives use dimensional folding technology to create spaces larger inside than outside." "Like the Time Lords," commented over the comm, earning chuckles from the younger crew members. "More like the builders of the first Time Lords," Al corrected with the seriousness that only children could bring to science fiction references. As they approached the structure, Sarah began to make out more details. The crystalline branches weren't random growths. They were precisely designed conduits that carried energy and information throughout the massive construct. And nestled within the network of crystal branches, she could see smaller structures that looked almost biological in design. "Those are living spaces," Ra explained, noticing her captain's focus. "The architects didn't just build a repository, they built a city, a place where knowledge could be preserved not just as data, but as living experience." "How many people lived here?" Sarah asked. "At its peak, approximately 50 million beings from hundreds of different species. The architects weren't conquerors, they were collectors. They gathered the best minds from across the galaxy and gave them a place to work together without the interference of politics or war." "What happened to them?" Brother and sister exchanged one of their meaningful looks before Al answered. "They succeeded too well. They created technologies that could reshape reality itself, and someone decided that kind of power was too dangerous to exist. The same someone who's been hunting species to extinction for the past 1,000 years, Sarah realized. "The Purifiers are the successors to whoever destroyed the architects," Ra confirmed. "The Council doesn't know this. They think the Purifiers are their tool. But the purification protocol existed long before the current council was formed. It's a self-perpetuating system designed to prevent any species from reaching the level of advancement that the architects achieved." Sarah felt pieces of a massive puzzle clicking into place in her mind. That's why they're so methodical about eliminating advanced species. They're not just maintaining political stability, they're preventing technological evolution. "And now they've identified humanity as a potential threat," Commander Blake added grimly. As the Prometheus drew closer to the archive, Sarah could see that the structure was even more impressive than she had initially realized. The crystalline branches weren't just conduits, they were computational matrices on a scale that comprehension. Each branch contained more processing power than every computer on Earth combined. "Permission to dock has been granted," Ra reported. "The archive is extending a docking umbilical to our position." Sarah watched as one of the smaller crystalline branches began to grow toward their ship, reshaping itself into a perfect docking collar that matched their vessel's specifications exactly. "How does it know our ship's configuration?" Blake asked. "The archive has been scanning us since we entered the system," Dr. Williams reported from his sensor station. "Not just our technology, but our biology, our language patterns, even our psychological profiles. It's learning about us." "Is that safe?" Sarah asked. Al looked up from his monitoring station. "The archive doesn't judge, Captain. It only seeks to understand. The knowledge it's gathering about humans will be preserved for future generations, just like the knowledge of every other species that has ever visited here." The docking process was unlike anything Sarah had ever experienced. Instead of the usual mechanical clicking and pressurization sounds, the connection felt almost organic, as if the archive was gently embracing their ship. Through the viewports, she could see that the docking collar was reshaping itself to create a perfect environmental seal. "Atmosphere in the docking tube is showing compatible with human physiology," Doctor reported. "Temperature, pressure, and oxygen levels are all within acceptable ranges." "The archive is adapting its environment to accommodate us," Ra explained. "It can create suitable conditions for any known form of life." Sarah made her decision. "Dr. Williams, Doctor, and Commander Blake will accompany me and our guests on the initial survey. Everyone else remains on standby until we know what we're dealing with." 20 minutes later, Sarah found herself walking through corridors that challenged every assumption she had about architecture and physics. The walls weren't quite solid. They seemed to shift and flow like liquid crystal, adjusting their transparency and luminosity based on the needs of whoever was walking past. The floors felt solid beneath her feet, but she could see complex patterns of light flowing through them like rivers of information. "This is remarkable," Dr. Williams breathed, running his hand along a wall that responded to his touch by displaying holographic equations in the air. "The entire structure is alive, not biologically, but it's a living computer on a planetary scale." Ra led them deeper into the structure, following pathways that seemed to reshape themselves as they walked. "The archive responds to the intentions of its visitors. It's taking us where we need to go." "And where is that?" Blake asked. "The Guardian Chamber," Al replied, "where we'll formally accept our responsibilities as protectors of this knowledge." They walked in silence for several minutes, each member of the party overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of what they were experiencing. Finally, they emerged into a vast spherical chamber that seemed to extend infinitely in all directions. The walls, if they could be called walls, were covered in flowing patterns of light that Sarah gradually realized were representations of the entire galaxy. In the center of the chamber floated a crystalline structure about the size of a small building. As they approached, Sarah could see that it contained the preserved remains of 3 figures, 2 that looked vaguely humanoid and one that easy description. "The last Guardians," Ra said softly. "They died defending the archive during the final assault 300 years ago." "The who were supposed to replace them never made it here," Al added. "The purifiers found them first." Sarah stared at the preserved figures and realized she was looking at the ultimate sacrifice, beings who had given their lives to protect knowledge that could either save or destroy civilizations. "What happens now?" she asked. Ra approached the crystalline structure and placed her hands on its surface. The entire chamber responded, filling with harmonious tones that seemed to resonate through Sarah's bones. "Now we choose," the girl said. "We can activate the archive's defensive systems and create a protected zone around human space. We can share knowledge that will advance your species by. Or we can unlock the archive's offensive capabilities and use them to eliminate the purifier threat permanently." "Or all of the above," Al suggested. Sarah looked around the chamber, taking in the magnitude of the decision she was being asked to help make. In the space of a month, she had gone from exploring distant stars to potentially reshaping the balance of power in the galaxy. "What do you recommend?" she asked the children. Brother and sister exchanged their meaningful look one more time before Ra answered. "We recommend that you choose for humanity, Captain. The archive will accept you as a guardian if you're willing. Your species' perspective might be exactly what the galaxy needs." Sarah realized that the alien mother's dying words were about to be tested in ways Ra could never have imagined. The question was no longer whether she would stand with these children, but whether she was prepared to stand as their equal in reshaping the galaxy itself. The weight of billions of lives hung in the balance, and Sarah suddenly understood that her simple human compassion had brought her to the most important decision in galactic history. Captain Sarah stood before the crystalline guardian chamber, feeling the weight of galactic history pressing down on her shoulders. The archive's vast intelligence waited patiently for her decision, its ancient systems humming with barely contained power that could either protect or destroy entire civilizations. "I need to understand exactly what I'm agreeing to," she said to Ra and Al. "What does it mean to be a guardian?" Ra's hair shifted to the deep gold color that indicated she was accessing racial memories, passed down through thousands of years of guardianship. A guardian becomes part of the archive's consciousness while maintaining their individual identity. You would have access to the accumulated knowledge of every civilization that has ever contributed to the repository, and the ability to use the archive's systems to protect or nurture developing species. "But you would also be bound by the Prime Directive," Al added. "No guardian can use the archive's power for personal gain or to impose their will on others. The role exists solely to preserve and protect." Dr. Williams stepped closer to the crystalline structure, his scientific curiosity overriding his caution. "The technology is partially biological, isn't it? I'm reading neural patterns that suggest organic components integrated with quantum computational matrices." The architects believed that true wisdom could only come from the marriage of organic intuition and artificial logic, Ra confirmed. "Each guardian contributes their unique perspective to the archive's decision-making processes." Sarah studied the preserved figures of the previous guardians, trying to imagine what their lives had been like. "How long do guardians typically serve?" "As long as they choose to," Al replied. "The archive systems can extend consciousness indefinitely, but most guardians eventually choose to merge completely with the collective knowledge, becoming part of the archive's permanent memory." "A form of technological immortality," Doctor observed. "More than that," Ra corrected. "True immortality. The guardians who choose full integration become part of something larger than any individual consciousness. They become part of the galaxy's living memory." Commander Blake had been studying the tactical implications displayed on the chamber's walls. "Captain, if you accept this role, what happens to the Prometheus and the crew? Do we become prisoners here?" Before Sarah could answer, the archive itself responded. The chamber filled with a harmonious voice that seemed to speak directly to each person's mind in their native language. The crew of the Prometheus would be honored guests, free to leave or stay as they choose. The archive requires only one human guardian to establish the protective protocols around your species' space. Others may visit, learn, and return to share knowledge with your people. Sarah felt a strange sense of relief. She had been prepared to sacrifice everything for the sake of protecting Ra and Al, but the archive was offering a solution that didn't require her to abandon her humanity entirely. "What about the immediate threat?" she asked. "The purifiers are still out there and they're planning to move against Earth." Ra approached one of the chamber's control interfaces, a flowing surface of liquid crystal that responded to her touch by displaying a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. "Once the Guardian protocols are activated, we can establish a defensive perimeter around human space that will prevent any hostile action. But Captain, there's something more we can do." The display zoomed in on various sectors throughout the galaxy, highlighting dozens of star systems in red. "These are the locations where the purifiers have eliminated species over the past 5 centuries, but their data storage facilities are all connected through subspace communication networks. If we can access their central database, we can gather evidence of their crimes," Sarah realized, "proof that the Galactic Council can't ignore." Al nodded enthusiastically. "The purifiers have been careful to make their eliminations look like natural disasters or internal conflicts, but their true records contain the real data. With that evidence, we could expose the entire purification protocol to the galaxy." Dr. Williams looked up from his examination of the archive's interfaces. The political implications would be staggering if the council members knew they had been manipulated into supporting genocide. "Some of them already know," Ra said grimly. "But others have been deceived. The purifiers have spent centuries building a network of influence and control that extends throughout the galactic government." Sarah began to see the full scope of what they were dealing with. So we're not just protecting humanity from immediate threat. We're potentially exposing a conspiracy that could bring down the entire galactic power structure. And replacing it with what? Blake asked pragmatically. Political vacuums tend to get filled by whoever has the biggest weapons. With a system based on cooperation instead of domination, Al answered. The archive has detailed records of civilizations that achieved true interstellar harmony. We have blueprints for governmental structures that could work on a galactic scale. Sarah walked closer to the Guardian chamber, feeling the pull of destiny and the weight of responsibility in equal measure. If I do this, if I become a Guardian, will I still be human? You will be more human than you have ever been, the archive's voice assured her. The Guardian process enhances existing capabilities rather than replacing them. Your compassion, creativity, and stubborn determination to protect others are exactly the qualities that make humans ideal guardians. Captain, Dr. Williams called from where he was studying readouts at one of the chamber's interfaces. I'm reading massive energy signatures approaching the system. Multiple vessels, moving at speeds that shouldn't be possible with conventional propulsion. Ra and Al rushed to join him at the display, their hair colors shifting rapidly through patterns that indicated alarm and urgency. Purifier Assault Fleet, Ra confirmed. They've deployed their experimental vessels, ships powered by stolen archive technology from species they've eliminated. How did they find us? Blake demanded. They've been tracking us since we left space, Al admitted. Not our ship, but the resonance patterns of our genetic signatures. Every carries quantum markers that can be detected by sufficiently advanced sensors. Sarah felt her heart sink. You knew they could track you and you didn't tell us. We hoped the archive's defensive systems would mask the signatures before they could triangulate our position, Ra said. We were wrong. The chamber's displays shifted to show tactical information about the approaching fleet. 12 vessels, each one larger than anything in the human fleet, armed with weapons that could sterilize entire planets. How long until they reach us? Sarah asked. Approximately 4 hours, Dr. Williams replied after consulting the sensor data. Time enough to activate the Guardian protocols and establish defensive barriers, Al said hopefully. But not enough time to gather the evidence we need or establish protection around Earth, Ra added grimly. Sarah realized that the impossible choice was about to become even more impossible. She could either save the archive and the children, or she could save Earth, but probably not both. There is another option, the archive's voice said gently, one that your species' unique perspective makes possible. What option? The chamber's walls shifted to display complex calculations and probability matrices that hurt Sarah's head to look at directly. The Guardian process can be accelerated and distributed. Instead of one human Guardian, the archive could accept multiple Guardians simultaneously, each contributing their specialized knowledge and abilities. Sarah looked around at her crew members. You're talking about all of us becoming Guardians. The process would be voluntary, the archive assured them. But a distributed Guardian network would have capabilities far beyond what any individual Guardian could achieve. You could simultaneously protect the archive, defend Earth, expose the Purifier conspiracy, and establish the foundation for a new galactic government. At what cost? Blake asked. The cost is the same for all Guardians, a lifetime commitment to protecting knowledge and nurturing developing civilizations. But the rewards would be proportionally greater. You would become the architects of a new age of galactic civilization. Sarah looked around at her crew, seeing the mix of fear and determination on their faces. These people had already sacrificed their careers and their safety to protect 2 alien children. Now she was asking them to sacrifice their humanity itself for the chance to reshape the galaxy. I need a decision from each of you, she said, and I need it now. The purifiers will be here in 4 hours, and after that our options disappear. One by one, her crew stepped forward. Dr. Williams first, driven by scientific curiosity and the chance to preserve knowledge for future generations. Doctor, motivated by his oath to heal and protect. Lieutenant Martinez, seeing the opportunity to ensure that humanity would never face extinction. Commander Blake, accepting the responsibility that came with command. Chief Engineer, understanding that some things were worth any sacrifice. All right then, Sarah said, turning to face the Guardian chamber. Let's change the galaxy. As she placed her hands on the crystalline surface, Sarah felt the archive's ancient consciousness reach out to touch her mind. For a moment, she experienced a vision of the galaxy as it could be thousands of species working together, sharing knowledge and resources, exploring the universe as partners rather than competitors. It was a vision worth fighting for. It was a vision worth becoming something more than human to achieve. The Guardian protocols activated with a sound like cosmic winds, and Sarah ceased to be merely human as she became something far greater. Behind her, her crew underwent the same transformation, their consciousness expanding to encompass not just their own knowledge and experience, but the accumulated wisdom of a million civilizations. When the Purifier fleet arrived 4 hours later, they found the archive protected by defensive systems they had never encountered before, systems operated by beings who combined the compassion of humanity with the technological mastery of the architects. The battle that followed lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it ended, the Purifier fleet was disabled but not destroyed, its crews alive but imprisoned by quantum restraint fields that would hold them until the evidence of their crimes could be presented to the galaxy. And across human space, defensive barriers sprang into existence, protecting every human world from any possible threat, while Earth's governments received detailed information about the conspiracy that had nearly doomed their species. The alien mother's dying wish had been fulfilled in ways she could never have imagined. Not only had the humans stood with her children, they had stood with all the galaxy's children, ensuring that never again would entire species face elimination for the crime of potential. Love had indeed proven stronger than fear, and the galaxy would never be the same.